It's great to be back here and talking about this amazing report that offers, there's just so much information here, and I know it can be slightly overwhelming sometimes, but I do want to try to simplify it a bit for everybody so you have a kind of a better understanding of what this means and how important this certain report is. So let's dive in, shall we? So the first booster group is the dopamine, and I'm not going to read this verbatim, but please feel free to take pictures. I'm going to bring in my own information for you guys a little bit, and this is available for you as well. But I think when everybody thinks of weight loss, most people go, okay, how do I lose weight? I eat better and I exercise, and that's going to be how I do it. People do these things. They exercise, they eat better, and they don't realize that there are so many other chemical reactions in the body that can trigger or cause somebody to not be able to maintain a healthy weight for whatever that means for them specifically, right? So we took these specific pathways, and this is where we're going to break it down, with the first one being dopamine. What is dopamine, for starters, right? It's a neurotransmitter. It plays a really important role in how we feel pleasure, right? How good we feel, and the human ability to think and to plan. So the interesting part of what it does here with us when it comes to weight management, it is actually kind of associated, or definitely associated, with addictive behaviors and addictive eating, right? So that's what we think. The timing of the food, of when we eat it, satiety, carbohydrate craving, some of these genetic variants are usually seen in obese people. We do see these come out more so than we do in lean, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. So mainly what we notice here is the addictive disorders characterized by uncontrolled food intake and the ability to limit our eating. We get these strong, overwhelming cravings, especially when we start to use food as a reward. That's when it can become more difficult to control this particular pathway, right? When we're thinking about, I did so good today, I had a great day, I got a promotion, all that is wonderful, I'm going to go have some ice cream, you know, and you utilize food as, okay, this is going to make me feel even better than I already feel. That's when that can trigger this certain pathway to be, oh, okay, reward, this is what I'm going to do. Every time I'm happy or something's going well, I'm going to go ahead and just reward myself. And then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes addictive. And then this certain pathway, dopamine, decreases, right? So we feel the need to reward ourselves more and more and more. Some people choose other things, right? But we're talking about food, as it can lead to the way our body metabolizes and the inability to maintain healthy weight management. So we've used some really great ingredients within this booster, right, that helps improve how our body reacts to certain foods, right, and helps us break down insulin and glucose, which we'll talk about that a little bit more too. So things like chromium, which is great to help break down and improve insulin action, also helps with blood glucose levels, fat mass, and increases good cholesterol, which is our HDL, of course, and appetite control. So it does help with that dopamine support system. L-tyrosine is another great one, a great amino acid, of course, a building block to help produce dopamine in the body. Resveratrol, I know we've heard lots and lots about resveratrol, found naturally in red grapes and also in wine, we know. But it's been known to be a very powerful antioxidant, as well as a neuroprotective, right? So neuroprotective properties, it helps us support our dopamine levels, which is awesome. So the dopamine booster group was created ingredient-wise and things to help neuroprotect, produce healthy amounts of dopamine, because when our dopamine's low, we need that reward, right? That addictive behavior comes out. So if we can support it in a healthy way, then it makes life a little bit easier when it comes to the addictiveness that we can find in food. And food is a reward. And it also has to do with behavior, right? We have to be able to change our thought process. If we can't change how we think about food, meaning food is fuel and not a reward as much, then that will help as well within this particular pathway also. Next, Craig, would be group 2. Group 2 is leptin resistance. This is I like this one because this is something I don't think people could think about, right? Leptin is it's a reaction, a chemical reaction that happens in the body. Leptin means, hey, you're hungry. I'm sorry, you're full. Ghrelin, GR, I taught you guys this, I should remember this. GR means you're hungry. Ghrelin, so ghrelin says, the body says, I'm hungry. Leptin says, you know what, there's enough fat in the cell, there's enough glucose in the cell, I'm good, we can stop eating now. When there's a deficiency here, right? So that's when it can cause a problem, is when we start to see where ghrelin is still, that communication between leptin and ghrelin is inhibited, and leptin is a little bit higher. So you're like, gosh, I just feel like I'm still hungry. And I know there are people out there that just, you eat and you think, why am I still hungry? I just ate something I don't understand. And you're legitimately hungry still. And that seems to be a problem in a lot of people. So what we wanted to do was to create a balance between this chemical reaction between leptin and ghrelin. We want the brain to get the signal that, hey, there's enough glucose and there's enough fat within this cell that we can stop eating now. And that's what happens within this reaction. So we are trying to enhance leptin levels, so that way we understand, and the brain understands, that the body is full, in what we call satiety. This decreases our risk of storing more fat. This decreases our risk of having issues with being able to break down glucose with our insulin pathway, which we'll talk about as well. And we don't want the body to constantly think it's starving. That's what we don't want. So we want to be able to create that satiety and also decrease that excessive hunger that some of us do get. So we use some great ingredients within this. I'm kind of run through a little few of them, guys. I'm not going to kind of go into all of them, because then Craig will be, we'll be here for hours. Alpha lipoic acid is great antioxidant. It helps support healthy glucose levels, improves sugar and fat metabolism, reduces oxidative stress and obesity and diabetes, reduces waist circumference, which is a good thing, and improves circulation, and reduces nerve damage and diabetic neuropathy we've seen too. So great antioxidants, and powerful to be able to help break down sugars and put them, so we're not storing them, right? Or so we're not able to not efficiently store them, I should say. Ginseng, we love ginseng. It's a great herb. It helps control glucose levels as well. It helps accentuate insulin sensitivity, which we want. We want the cells to be insulin sensitive, or sensitive to insulin. It helps with excessive hunger. It helps control appetite. There's a lot of things in research that we've seen with this particular herb, and it was a great addition to this particular booster. Ashwagandha, of course, is another herb, which decreases stress and anxiety, which is great. It decreases those food cravings that we've seen, increases energy, help control blood sugars. I mean, all these things came together for a particular reason. Magnesium, the fourth most abundant mineral found in the body, required by over 300 enzymes to function properly. It's huge, right? Scientifically and clinically, we've seen about an 80 to 90% deficiency rate in patients, which is also very huge. So we want to be able to throw this in there as well. As we know, it does help stabilize blood sugars, metabolic syndrome decreases, right? So it helps decrease that ghrelin, that I'm still hungry, and increase leptin, saying that I'm full. It's been known to do that in research, which is great, as it is, an important mineral that helps the body do what it needs to do efficiently on a daily basis. It's an essential mineral. Zinc is another great one that we put in here, helps with insulin resistance, of course, blood sugars, and it helps in the regulation and the effects of the imbalance between leptin and ghrelin. So that was another one that we wanted to make sure went in there as well. Synergistically does all the little key factors that we wanted to do to help support this particular booster and create more of an energy balance between the chemicals of leptin and ghrelin to create more of a satiety, or a feeling of being full. So that's leptin resistance, and making sure that our body understands that it's not going to be resistant to leptin. We want it to be sensitive to leptin. Same thing we're going to talk about with insulin, which happens to be next, Craig. So group number 3, insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism support booster. These are a lot to say sometimes, right? We want insulin sensitivity. That's what we want. We want the cells to be sensitive and reactive to understanding, oh, here's some insulin. I need to start breaking down the glucose that I put into my body by eating certain carbohydrates, which include sugars. So, but when our body fails to do this, we can become insulin resistant. That's what we don't want, because then comes what we call hyperinsulinemia, meaning our insulin levels are too high. And that's where we start to see or lead to things like obesity. Don't want that, right? So when we think about insulin sensitivity and glucose, a lot of people want to think of behavior, and that is part of it. Yes, we want to train our brain to understand that we don't need excess carbohydrates and we don't need excess sugars, but it can go back to that dopamine boost too, right? Where that pathway doesn't allow us to understand or control those kind of addictive behaviors. So we wanted to throw that in, as well as understanding that we need to support proper or healthy insulin sensitivity. So the reason that we utilize certain ingredients in this one, my favorite one that came out of this is oligonol. Amazing studies supported by over 30 human clinical trials. It's patent. It comes from a fruit and a little bit of green tea as well. It's a very small percentage, but the absorption has been known to be excellent. Lots of anti-aging effects and benefits. And it does increase our insulin sensitivity, which is great. We want that, right? So it helps decrease visceral fat, of course, because if we start to store too much insulin and it doesn't help effectively break down our glucose, that's stored in adipose and fat cells. So if we're breaking down visceral fat, that means we're breaking that insulin and that glucose down, and our body's running more efficiently and smoothly. And it also has the ability in studies to help control binge eating. My favorite ingredient, probably across the board. Great herb, great fruit, right, that goes in with this and helps support this insulin sensitivity and metabolism support booster. One more I want to go through here, and that's berberine. I love berberine. It's known as the herbal form of metformin without the yucky side effects. It does help with insulin sensitivity, bringing that up, right? Lowers glucose levels, reduces the risk of diabetes, neurological complications, right? International Journal of Endocrinology actually stated that berberine has positive side effects or effects of glucose metabolism, promoting healthy insulin secretion, which is what we want. So the body is sensitive to insulin, not resistant. We don't want it to resist it. We want it to grab onto it. So that process can help us break down sugars and break down the fats in our fat cells. So another great ingredient, there are a couple more, but those are my two favorites. So we want heightened insulin sensitivity. We want efficient glucose metabolism. So if we see an issue within these particular genetic variants, there could be a predisposition to not being able to effectively do these processes in the body, and that's why we have to support them. So next group is group 4. Group 4 is our pre-diabetes and diabetes type 2. We're not talking about type 1 here. We're talking about type 2 booster support. We obviously know, as I was saying, that insulin sensitivity can lead to things like hyperinsulinemia, which is pre-diabetes type 2, and then eventually lead into type 2 diabetes. And if there's a genetic predisposition for it, and when you don't support that with healthy lifestyle changes, nutrients to help the body do this process more efficiently, then we can be more predisposed or more apt to start seeing type 2 diabetes. And gosh, what did I read once? 79 million Americans under the age of 20 are actually undiagnosed with prediabetes. 79 million under age 20. That's huge. We know type 2 diabetes is huge across the board. It's a very expensive, can lead to many side effects, many complications down the road. If we understand that this is a possibility for us and we can support that with lifestyle and nutrition, oh my goodness, let's do it, because we know that type 2 diabetes drives insurance costs up. It makes people unhappy, right? Nobody wants to have to worry about checking their glucose on a daily basis. Oh, so this is utilizing nutrients to help support this particular pathway, helping break down break down glucose by responding well to insulin and keeping those glucose levels stable, so we don't have to worry about the increased risk of insulin resistance or pre-diabetes, or even, heaven forbid, type 2 diabetes, which is curable in my clinical opinion. However, understanding it, we can stay away and prevent and be proactive in the first place. So we use some great nutrients and within this boosters to help support that particular biochemical pathway of breaking down glucose efficiently. Cinnamon. Has anybody ever heard about using cinnamon to break down glucose? It's actually fabulous. So it's a natural spice, as we know. It's shown to reduce insulin resistance clinically, which is great, right? So it blocks the absorption of particular carbohydrates or sugars, and it actually can mimic that insulin reaction in the body to help decrease blood sugar levels. Great herb to put into this particular product. It does help people reduce body fat mass. Of course, why? Because we're breaking down glucose more efficiently. We're not storing insulin, and therefore our cells can function better and we lose fat mass, which is great. Milk thistle. Kind of a strange one. Everybody associates milk thistle with the liver, right? But now we understand that where does this glucose, glycogen, insulin, where does all this start or initiate? Well, lots of different parts of the body and tissues and organs are involved in this, but this helps with the liver's process and all of this, right? Protects the liver from oxidative stress as well as other organs, and promotes this healthy blood sugar regulation in the body. When we use it with certain other ingredients such as berberine, which is also in this, it does reduce insulin resistance and keeps that blood sugar under control. And we've even seen that happen in type 1 diabetics as well, but that's just clinically and in research. Of course, we're not talking about them here, but I had to put that up there. Next group, group 5, impaired satiety. We know clinically, it's not a term that we use a lot, but it's defined as a condition of being full or having gratitude, right? Or being gratified and feeling full and sufficient. That if we don't feel this or have this, it leads to overeating, of course. And this is genetically predisposed as well. We've seen where we've had families that can just go to a buffet and they just tear it up. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. My family's been known to do that, so it's okay. But it's a genetic predisposition that we can come in and help support, right? So what it does is our body has a lot of protective sensors, right? And its job is to send out to the body and say, okay, you've eaten enough, you're full, stop. You don't need to eat anything else. Great. And and some people will listen to that and other people will ignore that and say, but I still have a dessert stomach, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that up now. Well, actually, when your body starts to say you're full and you feel that feeling not only in your gut, but in your brain, we have to listen to it, right? But if we're genetically predisposed to not have that signal kind of say, hey, you're done, then it can lead to not having that gratification feeling or being full. Also, it has a lot to do with our leptin and ghrelin, of course, so this is also something that's going to support that. Addressing these particular appetite control protectors, right? It helps with healthy weight management, yes. We can utilize lifestyle to help with that as well. Eating healthier foods, of course, and changing our behavior, listening to our brain when it says, hey, you're full. Okay, maybe I should stop eating now, supporting it with the proper nutrients, the particular enzymatic functions and biochemical pathways, of course. Exercise helps with this as well. Exercise, as we know, when we're moving and we're active and we're creating movement, it's making lots of signals go off and creating balances between neurotransmitters and chemicals. It's a great way, but of course, it's not the end all tell all. We want to make sure that we support it, and we do. Slimaluna is what this particular product is called. It's in here along with a few other things, but it's actually derived from a cactus plant. When combined with certain healthy other nutrients and a healthy lifestyle, diet, and exercise, it promotes appetite suppression, as well as giving us that feeling of satiety. It's not an appetite suppressant per se, but when it's combined with other ingredients that we've used, as well as a healthy lifestyle, making healthy lifestyle choices, it does increase that feeling of being full and helps support it. So then, of course, it helps reduce waist circumference, and lowers those food cravings and reduces kind of that everyday food stress. I know that sounds weird, but there's such thing as food stress, and it helps support that in a healthy way. So kind of a neat ingredient to have here within this booster. There are other chromium, of course, and different things that we put in microdoses to help support everything and create this wonderful blend of nutrients that does help protect certain signals, as well as enhance neurotransmitter and chemical balances, so in the brain, which we know is associated to a decreased efficacy in weight management. I'll just put it that way. So, all right, next slide, Craig. I'm trying to burn through these, so I'm sorry, guys. I might want to slow down, huh? Group 6, metabolic syndrome support booster. I think we've all heard of this. Metabolic syndrome is typically a few different symptoms or a few different conditions coming together that create the body to have a decreased efficacy and our metabolism, and how we can effectively or efficiently break down glucose and blood sugars, how we can support healthy cholesterol levels, and also, of course, blood pressure, and then weight. We know when we tend to put on a little bit weight, it does put stress on our bodies. It puts stress on all of our organs, our heart, which can create increased blood pressure, which Craig put there, which was awesome. And it can just cause so many different things to not run smoothly or efficiently. Metabolic syndrome is a combination number of different things that come together. We don't want this. Some of us are genetically predisposed to these things. You go to the doctor, oh yeah, my mom had high blood pressure. Oh yeah, my dad had high blood pressure. It is a genetic predisposition, but it is something that we can support, and we can be proactive and preventative with of course, healthy lifestyle, and then of course, supporting it with the proper nutrients. So within this particular pathway, looking at these particular SNPs, we wanted to support how blood sugars are, make sure that we can break them down, make sure that we can help with BMI, lowering those by helping the body metabolize fat more efficiently, also supporting things like good cholesterol, right? And creating a healthy cholesterol level, so that way we don't have it too high where we're storing fats in the body and in the arteries, and we don't want that. So what do we use? Let's talk about a couple things. Omega-3s. Omega-3s are so good for so many different things, right? Including EPA, which we use for the heart, to protect the heart and protect the eyes, and it helps reduce, it's been shown to help reduce inflammation and blood pressure in the body, regulate a healthy heart rate, lower triglycerides, and LDL, which is our bad cholesterol. DHA helps support the brain and is a neuroprotectant and helps the brain and those neurotransmitters function a little bit better. It just has a lot of good qualities in it. And this is why when they say you have, when you have surgery and they say, if you're taking any omegas, you need to stop them. Well, because it has this antithrombotic type of action to it. It helps so the body just moves more efficiently. Our blood does, our heart pumps better. Our blood sugar is more regulated. So it can, that's why they say to come off of it, is because it can have that effect on the body. But we use it here, of course, because we want to support healthy cardiovascular function if we're predisposed to it, and also help with high blood sugars and things like that. We also use chromium within here, which is great, as we know, to help lower cholesterol, a little bit of magnesium, of course, as well, just to help with insulin and glucose regulation. Actually, they found this great, really large study. It was over 24,000 individuals with metabolic syndrome. And they actually used magnesium as well as other things and lifestyle choices. And it actually reduced the rate or the risk of their metabolic syndrome by a specific amount, which I don't remember the percentage. But that's why, of course, we used it, is because there was such huge clinical data to back it. We used oligonol again as well, just to help with the healthy blood sugars. Great absorption, of course, decreases insulin resistance, and visceral fat in the body too, and improves metabolic syndrome, which is great. That's what we want. Next slide. Group 7. Who would have thought we would have brought MTHFR into this, right? Like, a lot of people understand how important that methylation pathway is and how important MTHFR is in the body. But I don't think we knew about the crucial role that it actually plays, right? So methylation balances our metabolism and our chemical reactions in the body. We've seen with genetic variants within this particular gene or pathway, it can lead to improper fat metabolism, weight gain, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, which is all part of the metabolic syndrome, of course, that we just talked about. MTHFR is our foundation, and it precurses so many different metabolic reactions in the body. It just made sense to support this as well. So, of course, we add the 5-methyl-tetrahydrofolate in there because we want to have the correct form that the body understands how to utilize, how to absorb, and how to put energy into the cell to preface all those biochemical and metabolic reactions. We use trimethylglycine and choline, which are precursors and supporters to particular folate and methylation pathways, of course. It can help decrease our homocysteine levels, which is great. We've seen in studies. And we also know it's really good for cardiovascular health. As it decreases those levels of homocysteine, it helps support our heart and our cardiovascular functions, which can be a part of this metabolic syndrome that I was speaking of before. So since there's such a huge influence with methylation as a preface to how our body functions, we did feel that it was very necessary to put it in this product, to put energy, good energy, into a cell so it can do everything more efficiently and effectively. So that's why there's MTHFR support booster group here. So next slide, Craig. Group 8, caffeine metabolism. This is the one that gets people, right? Like, I don't understand. Why do I have this SNP and this, and I'm getting it's the opposite of what I would think I would need to do? So here's what it's about. Fast metabolizers of caffeine may have a little bit more symptom here and there, right? It might be like, oh, I feel a little hyper, I feel pretty good, but it drops off really quick. This is the person that can, this is me. This is the person that can drink coffee at 9 p.m. at night and be in bed asleep by 9:15, 9:30. Those are fast metabolizers. Their body metabolizes it quickly, and that's what we want it to do. It becomes a problem when somebody's a slow metabolizer. It prolongs the effects of caffeine, and it also slows the process of fat oxidation. So it actually, where caffeine is noted to help speed up fat metabolism, if you're a slow metabolizer, it can actually slow that process down. So that's why everybody's like, oh, well, just caffeine, it helps you, gives you energy, it makes you this, it makes you that. It's also speeding up fat metabolism, unless you have a particular variant that shows you do this in a more slow rate. And that's why we had to support it, right? So it's actually broken down in the liver, caffeine is. There's a particular enzyme that's utilized with it that can also have influence on our adrenal glands as well, can cause these people to break down caffeine at different metabolic rates and speeds, like I was saying. When you've got the rapid quick, it's a good thing. You might feel the effects a little bit stronger, but it is a good thing to be able to metabolize it quickly. But therefore at night, and especially drinking any after 3 p.m. Can cause problems because it can not speed up fat metabolism and things that happen at night too while we're asleep. Our body's still working while we're sleeping. But if you've got these prolonged effects of caffeine that's suppressing some of these particular pathways or processes, or actions, then it can cause us to have a higher risk of healthy or unhealthy weight management. So we've utilized particular nutrients in here to help support that a little bit better. I still say avoid caffeine after 3 p.m. If you have a yellow or even mainly a yellow, those are actually the worst ones. So a copy from one parent, let me rephrase that, sorry. A number one, a copy from one parent, but we're going to support it as well as we can, but I still would avoid caffeine after 3 p.m. or even sooner on some people, which you know how you react to caffeine. L-theanine, of course, being a great amino acid, it's a relaxation nutrient, but it doesn't cause sedation, of course. It reduces the symptoms of stress and anxiety. It also helps metabolize caffeine in a healthy way. So that's why we utilize that great amino acid. We know magnesium is very calming as well, and it does help with insulin resistance, so we're not as resistant to insulin. And it also helps with the stress hormone cortisol, which comes from our adrenals. That's why we say some people who have adrenal fatigue shouldn't drink caffeine. So there's another indicator. Some people might say, but I'm showing that I don't need support here, but yet when I drink caffeine, I still have an issue. There are so many other metabolic processes in the body that can contribute to that, including our adrenal glands. So don't forget that one. So using particular ingredients to help support healthy caffeine metabolism, I still would avoid caffeine after 2 to 3 p.m., depending on how slow you actually metabolize it. And that way your body can do what it needs to do more efficiently, especially when you're trying to sleep at night, because we know if we don't sleep well, that also increases our risk for an unhealthy weight management. Okay, Craig, that's the end of the genetic-based boosters, the ones that we look at the particular SNPs, we put them together in particular pathways, and then we support them in that sense. The next ones have to do with male versus female. As we know, men have different reasons for not being able to maintain healthy weight management than females do. So we want to come in and support that, not based on genetics or certain SNPs, of course. Utilizing in the male is kind of one of my favorites. It's called testofen. It's a fenugreek extract. So it's, of course, plant-based. We want to use as good a product as we can in here. It does help increase energy in men. They did a study where they actually found that it helped decrease the percentage of fat mass and body fat compared to a placebo that they used in this particular study. It does help support healthy testosterone levels. It doesn't mean that it gives you the testosterone that you need, but it helps create a balance. Of course, we still always recommend having hormones checked, but we know that in men, if testosterone goes down and estrogen goes up, that can cause a problem in men being able to effectively have healthy weight management. So we want to kind of make that shift and help create a balance, but it's still, of course, recommended to have all those levels checked out by your physician. So that is for male. There are a couple others that we put in there as well to help support that particular herb. But the overall goal is to create a healthy discussion, I do this word discussion, but chemical reaction between estrogen and testosterone in men. However, we still, like I said, recommend having that tested. So it's not going to give you testosterone. Just like the next one, this female booster, there, I heard a lot of confusion here, and some women thinking that it actually kind of almost gave you enough hormone support that you didn't need to take hormone replacement therapy, or that you were, going to be okay and not need hormones. That's not what this is about, right? So we understand that in women, sometimes they have certain challenges being able to have hormone balance, healthy energy relationship there, a healthy hormone metabolism even, and we all metabolize hormones differently, male and female, and a lot of it is based on genetics, which is kind of cool. It can decrease our endurance, our strength, our energy. So in women, when estrogen goes too high, we have too high of estrogen, it's stored in fat cells. So what it can do is it can create this unhealthy amount of storage that it does make it a little bit more difficult for women to lose weight. It doesn't give you estrogen. We're not doing anything like that. We're using a product called DIM, which actually helps get rid what we call Zen estrogens, or those toxic estrogens. We still recommend, of course, that you have your hormone levels checked by your healthcare provider. But what this does is there's a lot of industrial type of estrogens out there. So if you're eating from plastic containers all the time, drinking from plastic water bottles, those have been known to carry what we call Zen estrogens, which are toxic or unhealthy estrogens, which the body doesn't know what to do with, so it stores it. It stores it in adipose. It creates an unhealthy level of estrogen in the cells and can make it a lot more difficult for women to efficiently create a healthy weight management for themselves. So of course we come in, we use DIM, of course, in here to be able to help support the liver's function of breaking down and ridding this particular Zen estrogens or toxic estrogens in the body. So that's what we're doing with the male and the female. It's not SNP related per se, but it is definitely helping support overall all the different metabolic reactions in the body that could create an unhealthy weight management for each individual person. And I think that's all the boosters. And what do you think, Craig?